industry, like within the aviation industry, there is like a lot of fear mongering, and there are a lot of conspiracy theories, like, about the disappearance of MH370, or the disappearance of Amelia Earhart. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but like whenever like some aviation accident happens in general, like what do you take away from it, or like what do you try to learn from it before you go out flying again?
There's a good saying in aviation, uh there's a good saying which I learned and I still I told my students and I still keep it in mind. There are
Mm.
old pilots, but not bold pilots.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so you always keep learning in flying. You always learn from others' mistakes. The key is
yeah,
not to make the same mistake who has done
yeah,
it before, whoever has done it before, not to do the same mistake again. That's the only thing that I learned from an accident or an incident, whatever happens. And that's what most of the people do in aviation.
yeah,
If an accident happens, I really don't like the fact that most of the people, I wouldn't say all of them, most of the people start building up theories. Okay, this might have happened. That the problem is you were not there in that situation. You
yeah,
don't know what happened there.
yeah,
You don't know what the pilot was thinking at that point. Definitely, he didn't leave the house saying, "Today I'm going to die. Today I'm going to crash this airplane." He left with the thought that I'm going to take this airplane, I'm going to take these passengers, land them at a safe place, and go home and sleep. He didn't want to die. So I'm sure the person at that point, at that moment, was trying his best to save, trying the best to do whatever he could. So after the research is over, what we can do is basically just to learn what was he thinking, what his thought process was, and what did he miss out on, and what caused it. Mainly, what was the distraction that caused him to deter from what he was supposed to do? Him or her. I'm sorry, I'm not being gender biased here, but that's just a word that I'm
yeah,
using.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, so uh, yeah, just learn from others' mistakes. When I was an instructor, and even now, I tell people, even if I'm a 3,000-hour pilot, and if I meet a 300-hour pilot, or that matter, 100-hour pilot, I wouldn't look at to him any less than what I am, because the 300 hours that he has flown is different than the 3,000 hours I have flown. He has seen some different set of conditions. He or she has seen a different set of conditions, different airplanes, different weather, different runway, different everything. He was in a different, or she was in a different mental state when he was flying those 300 hours than I was. So there's always room to learn from others, and you should always be open to learn from the mistakes.
yeah, yeah. Most definitely. Yeah, I mean, when I was briefly training, like even my instructor said the same thing. Like you may have a 40-hour pilot, you may have a 400-hour pilot, or a 40,000-hour pilot, and as pilots, we're all equals because you don't know what you're gonna face the next day. So,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Once you put on that white shirt and black pants, we're all the same.
yeah, yeah. And so I just had like one last question about safety training in general. So, like pilots or most pilots today may end up having a career where they will never experience any sort of safety related issue, like Boeing, Airbus, Embraer, Gulfstream, or any other manufacturer has so and so designed the aircraft like not to fail. Like most aircraft today have phenomenal safety systems. Like for example, like the A220 has like this inbuilt, I think, emergency descent system, which can automatically be initiated, or it can be initiated on the pilot's input in case of a cabin depressurization. But yet there are accidents which like occasionally do happen, and they kind of shock the aviation community. Like when QF-32 happened, like the engine failure, like that shocked everyone. And like I still deeply admire Captain Richard Dukrepsny and his entire team. Like they were able to like safely and efficiently handle that complex emergency. So whenever you're training in the simulator, like what kind of accidents or emergencies do you train for? And like, is there a specific focus that you might have when you're training for emergencies as compared to pilots like 50 or 60 years ago?
Yes, definitely. The situations or scenarios that we train on are something that has occurred previously or something that might occur. So those will be engine failures, engine fires, cockpit fires, cabin fires, um, emergency descent, as you mentioned, depressurization, rapid
mm,
depressurization, explosive decompression, smoke in the cockpit, mm, pilot incapacitation. These are the things that have occurred, and there are more chances that these will occur. So these are the situations we train on. But we have to be, we have to realize that when we train for these situations, you know that it's coming. When you're flying in the
yeah,
trainer, when you're flying in the simulator, you know today you're going to experience an engine failure. Today you're going to experience an engine fire. So you've already briefed the memory items. You already
mm,
know what's coming ahead of you. But when you're
mm,
flying, you don't know what's coming next for you, and uh, it probably has never happened to anyone before. So you need to have a presence of mind. You need to rely
yeah,
back on whatever you have learned in the past, whatever emergencies or abnormal situations you have been trained on, then utilize or gain the basic idea of those things and then apply that knowledge to handle the situation.
yeah,
I'll give
yeah,
you a small situation what happened with me. When I was in the US, I was an instructor on the multi-engine aircraft, the Piper Seneca and the Diamond DA-42. Now, I was not flying on that day. My colleague was flying. He was also a flight instructor. He was flying with his student. And he called me on the company frequency. I was on the ground and he said, I would like to talk to Tejas. And I said, okay, I got on the frequency. What's happening? So he said, I've tried everything. I've used the checklist, but the landing gear is not coming down. I've even pulled the manual gear extension. I have done all the checklists, but the gear is not coming down. What do you suggest? Now, relying on my past experiences, relying on my understanding of the system, I told him to pull out a particular circuit breaker. I don't
yeah,
remember what it was because it was about 6, 7 years ago. So I told him to pull that circuit
mm,
breaker out. He pulled the circuit breaker out. It says, voila, the gear is down. Well, how did you know that?
okay,
Well, it's not in the checklist, but you need to know the system. You have to know the working behind the system to know maybe if I do this, that might help. And this is not recommended until and unless you follow all the required
yeah,
procedures and you have nothing else to do. And now you say, well, I've tried everything, I've got nothing else to do. Now I can rely on uh, my understanding of the system, my knowledge of the system, and then I can play around, provided you have done everything else and that has not worked.
yeah,
So
yeah,
these situations and scenarios that we train on are basically what everybody trains on. But when you are flying, situations don't happen, and the plane is not going to tell you, okay, in the next 5 minutes, my right engine is going to fail, and this is going to happen.
yeah,
And it may fail, but it may not fail the way you practiced in the simulator. I mean, like the 380 incident that you were talking about, it didn't happen like they were
mm,
trained in the simulator. It was an
mm,
uncontained failure. There was damage to the system, to the engine, and things were flying off and whatnot. So
yeah,
things may happen that are not written in the book, and then you have to have your presence of mind and your knowledge, what you have trained in the past before,
mm.
and then apply it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I was just watching, I don't even remember the name of the show, but like he was saying, it was like the simulator exercise from hell when they when they had their emergency. So